it's Shar. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. I'm going to be honest, I've been putting this video off a little bit. I've done some book shopping, picked up lots of books that were on my TBR. I do most of my book shopping secondhand at thrift stores or like at very steep sales. So today I'm going to show you the 13 books I've picked up from various thrift stores. All of these were under $5 and most of these were like in the $1 to $2 range. And then in the second half of the video, I'll tell you about the books that I picked up from the Audible Monster sale, because all of those books were also under $5. Now, the reason I've been putting off this video is because your girl does not often read summaries, right? I spend a lot of time on BookTube. I watch a lot of videos. I'm on Bookstagram. So I get recommendations from other creators. So when I'm doing my secondhand like book shopping, I'm just looking for the books that I recognize and that I know are already on my TBR. And essentially once I add a book to my TBR, I pretty much forget what it's about, because I like to go into my books knowing as little as possible after the point where they've been added to my TBR. I hope that makes sense, but I'm going to do my best to give you a summary that tells you what the book is about without spoiling any aspects of it, because I find that sometimes the synopsis does actually spoil the story. So without further ado, let's jump on in and talk about the 13 books that I picked up physically at the thrift store. So the first book that I picked up is While We Were Dating by Jasmine Guillory. I picked up at a secondhand bookstore for $5.50, and this follows Ben and Anna. I think Ben works in like the film industry, and he gets paired up with Anna for like the super expensive high stakes ad, and they get thrown together because of this ad campaign. So Ben works in the industry, Anna's an actress, and she wants to make it, and when they get put into this ad campaign, there's a lot of chemistry between them, and it's a romance following their love story. The cover is beautiful. I read one other Jasmine Guillory before and I didn't have the best luck with it, so I'm hoping that I'm gonna like this one a lot more. The second book I picked up, again for $5.50 from the secondhand bookstore, is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I don't know a lot about this. I know that it follows Camille when she returns to her hometown and her family. Her mother is very toxic. Her little sister is 13 years old and really weird. From what I could understand from the summary, she seems to have like some kind of control over the town. So in this town, there have been two young girls that have been murdered, and Camille is finding herself sucked into this. I know that a lot of people really love this book. I have no idea what happens in it, so I'm excited to pick this up. I think I'm gonna read this before I read Gone Girl, which you'll see later in this video. Then I have a nonfiction. This says $1.99. It was actually on sale. I paid like $1.50 for this from the thrift store. I, again, don't know a lot about this, so theme of this video. So this follows the story of the 1893 World Fair, and there was a serial killer here, and this tells you more about their victims and what's going on. I think it's a combo. It's nonfiction, but then he throws in some storytelling in there. I'm not clear, but again, this is just one that I added on my TBR because I know some other people love it, and it's very well known. Plus, it was super cheap, so I know that I'll read this in the year of 2023. Then we have my second, Sylvia Moreno Garcia. Have I read Mexican Gothic? No, but Velvet Was a Night is the book club pick for Meg's Patreon book club. This book, as you can see, was $2. It was not on sale. So this follows two people in 1970s Mexico. We have Maite and we have Elvis, and they are both investigating the disappearance of Leonora, I think it is. Yeah, I'm gonna say Leonora. And this is a noir, so it is set in 1970s Mexico. It's politically fraught. I'm super excited to read this. I will definitely be reading this month for Meg's Patreon book club. And we have the famous The Stranger Beside Me. This is a chunky book, but my mom actually got this for me as a gift from she likes to do like little street shopping, and someone was selling this for like 50 cents, I think. So I'm super excited to have my hands on this. So this follows the story of Anne Rule, who worked at a Seattle crisis clinic in 1971 and unknowingly was really close friends with Ted Bundy, the serial killer. This follows the story of her personal relationship with him and how she came to know that Ted Bundy was a serial killer. So I'm super excited to read this because I know that so many people love this book, and I'm curious to just read more about this. I'm not the kind of person that follows serial killers. I don't really like true crime often, but I think that following the perspective of Anne and what she came to know about Ted Bundy is going to be a really interesting experience. Then we have Frankly in Love. She's a little dusted, she's a little dirty, but nothing a little clean off can't do. She also has beautiful blue sprayed edges. So Frankly in Love follows Frank. Now Frank is a Korean American student living in California, and his family has some pretty high expectations of him, and he's navigating his identity of being Korean but also being American and trying to find himself and his place in California. He's gotten into this new relationship with a girl who we think is so sweet and so nerdy and so perfect for him, but she's white. And his parents are not going to approve of that. His childhood's best friend and his neighbor, Joy, is in a similar situation. So they decide to fake date because Joy is Korean and she's also dating a white person. So Joy and Frank are going to fake date. I don't know if they end up together, but I know this is a story about identity and finding yourself and familial expectations. I believe there's also some romance thrown in here. I know this is a favorite of a lot of people. I've been on my TBR for so long, and I'm so happy to finally own it and to have found it for the price of $2. Then we have Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. 2 Gillian Flynn books, both of them which were the only ones on my TBR. I picked this up for $1.50 because it was on sale. Now, believe it or not, I have never been spoiled for Gone Girl. I don't know how it ends. I think I've heard tidbits, but I really don't know what this story is about. I've never been spoiled for it, but I know that people think it is the wildest plot twist ever. I think I have an idea of what happens, but I think the fact that I've made it this many years without fully knowing what happens is great. I don't plan to read this anytime soon, but when I saw it, I knew that I wanted to pick it up because I do have the intention of reading it. I'm not going to give you a summary because I feel like at this point everyone knows what Gone Girl's about, but also I don't want to read the summary and spoil myself. I want to just go in and have the experience for myself for the first time, which I think is special because it's odd that I would not know what this book is about at this point, especially because the movie had so much success. Now, this book I also picked up for $1.50 because I believe it was on sale. Unlike the other ones, this is not a book that was already on my TBR. This is something that I actually saw at the bookstore, the thrift store, excuse me, really liked the cover of and then was intrigued about and then read the synopsis and was like, that sounds like my thing. So this follows Sarah and Patrick, and after the death of Sarah's mother, Sarah spirals into a depression and she ends up overdosing on sleeping pills, which has a huge impact on her family. She's recovered at this point and she and her family are trying to find stability. Against her wishes, her husband decides that the best thing to do would be to move to his childhood hometown. It has been several years since Patrick, her husband, had lived in that house, and in that time, that house actually became known as the murder house because of a series of gruesome murders that happened. Sarah and her family do end up moving in there, but of course the house seems to be haunted and it's having an effect on Sarah, her family, and her mind. You all know I love a haunted house story. I love a spooky setting. I love a house with a dark history, and I'm super excited to pick this one up, especially because I never heard of it. I'm hoping to get to this one in December, and I'm hoping that I will love it. Then we have The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. Now, this has been on my TBR for a long time, but I read Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins at the beginning of this year, and I loved it so much that I knew I wanted to read The Wife Upstairs. So when I saw it on sale for the price of, I think, $1.50, I knew that I had to snatch it on up. This is a retelling almost of Jane Eyre. So we're following Jane, and Jane is moving to this small town. Jane has a bit of a dark history. She's a thief. She likes stealing from people. When she catches the attention of a rich, recently widowed man, she's like, this is my opportunity. So she marries him, but as they start to fall in love and get to know each other, everyone talks about his late wife and how she died in a mysterious boating accident. And as these two are falling in love, both of their dark histories are catching up to them. I don't know anything beyond that, but I'm so excited to read this because I love Jane Eyre, and it sounds even darker because Jane Eyre was already dark with that ending, but this sounds like it's throwing in almost like some thriller and mystery elements, so I'm so excited to read this. Hoping to get to this soon, but y'all know I'm a mood reader, so I'll get to it when I get to it. Then I have 9 Perfect Strangers by Leanne Moriarty. Moriarty? Is that right? I think think so. Anyway, she's the author that wrote Big Little Lies. I've never read Big Little Lies, but this book was actually on sale for 50% off, I think. So I picked it up for $1. So this follows 9 people who go to like a health and wellness retreat at somewhere called the Tranquillium House. And we are following one of our main characters, Frances, and she's coming to know the other 9 guests at this retreat. I really don't know anything outside of that because the summary doesn't reveal it, but from what this summary kind of sounds like, it sounds like there's going to be some really sinister things going on here. I'm hoping that it'll turn into a murder mystery or a thriller at least, but I don't know. But it was a good deal, and it's something that I do think I will enjoy because I like the isolated closed circle stuff. So that is the other book that I picked up. Then I have Zara Hussein Is Here, which I picked up for $1. I saw this at the bookstore and I knew I wanted to pick it up. I know that it's a hard-hitting YA about Zara, who is a young Muslim girl living in Corpus Christi, Texas. She is being horrendously bullied by this just annoying person in her school who is targeting her and really saying some incredibly racist and xenophobic shit about her. He writes something incredibly racist on her locker one day, and as a consequence of his own actions, he is suspended. But of course, privileged white boy. So he goes to her house and spray paint and graffiti something incredibly Islamophobic onto their home, which leads to a violent crime. And this book follows the fallout from that and Zara navigating this world and the place that she has always known as home. And this book follows her trying to make the decision of leaving the only place that she has known as home because there is a huge risk to her family, and trying to find her place in the world. I am excited to read this. I know that it's more hard-hitting, so I'm gonna hold on reading this until I feel that I have the mental capacity to process this to the extent that I want to process this. Now this I just picked up for funsies because it was also on sale. It was super cheap at the thrift store. This is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. I don't know much about this, but I know that it follows son of a very wealthy and prominent family in England. He has always been known as a gentleman, but he really rebels against this identity as he gets older. His father expects him to take over the family estate, but my dude is like, no, I don't want to do that. And I think we follow his travels around Europe. He falls in love with a boy, but this boy has an incredibly dark history, I believe. That's all I know. That's all I want to know. I think this will be something that's going to be really enjoyable to read, probably in like January or February. And the last book that I picked up was The Hunting Wives, which I picked up for the low price of $5.50. This was largely inspired by Katie Colson because I saw one of her reading vlogs where she read this and really enjoyed it. Now, it sounds like something that I am going to enjoy because of the whole murder aspects, but this story follows Sophie O'Neill, and Sophie and her husband and her son have just moved to Texas, and Sophie ends up running into this very charismatic, very charming, very alluring woman named Margot. And Margot invites Sophie into this small social circle of the Hunting Wives, and they go into the forest or something. They practice shooting. Sophie's just very fascinated by Margot and almost obsessed with her from what I understand. And I'm super excited to read this and just gather my own thoughts from it. So I was so happy to see it at the thrift store for $5.50. All right, and that brings us to the Audible portion of this video where I'll tell you about some of the audiobooks that I picked up during the Audible sale. My price limit for any book was $5, so everything on this list was under $5. So the first Audible book that I picked up was Undead Girl Gang by Lily Anderson. Now this is described as Veronica Mars meets The Craft, and it follows a girl who investigates the suspicious death of 3 of her classmates and ends up actually bringing them back as a zombie gang, vigilantes trying to get justice. That's all I know about this book, but it sounds so good and so interesting, so I did go ahead and pick that up during the sale. Then I picked up Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. Now this was inspired by Mel from Mel Reads. I don't know much about this, but I know that it follows a girl who is a 9-tailed fox. So Wicked Fox is set in modern day Seoul, and it follows Gumi Young, who is a 9-tailed fox, and that means that she has to feed off of the energy of men in order to survive. While she is hunting one night under the full moon, she runs into a boy named An Ji-hoon, and An Ji-hoon is being attacked by a goblin. So Mi-young ends up saving him. But in saving him, she loses her fox speed, which is her soul in the process. Now, Ji-hoon now knows that Mi-young is a nine-tailed fox because he saw that while she was saving his life. And he finds himself drawn to her. And one day he does find her fox bead. But there are murderous forces lurking. And this story follows Mi-young and Ji-hoon as they develop their friendship and it becomes something more. That's the extent of what I know about this, but I know that Mel really loves this. I was so sad that I didn't get the fairy loot box for this because it came out before I got back into reading, but I'm super excited to read this book. I'm very much in an audiobook mood, so I know that I will get to this soon. Then I picked up a super sad book, which is The Traveling Cat Chronicles. Now, this follows a man, Satoru, I think, who is very ill, and he's going around to people trying to find a home to rehome his cat, Nana. We follow the cat's perspective in this, and all I know is that it's really sad and it makes people cry. So I'm gonna save this to a point where I want to cry. I know that it was translated from Japanese, I believe. That was one of my goals, to read more translated works, so I'm excited to have this on my officially owned TBR. Then I picked up The Once and Future Witches, which I know is a fave of so many people. I don't know much about this, but I know that it follows multiple generations, I think, and it is about magic. Let me just read the summary to you because I'm explaining this poorly. In the late 1800s, three sisters used witchcraft to change the course of history in this powerful novel of magic, family, and the suffragette movement. In 1893, there's no such thing as witches. There used to be, in the wild, dark days before the burnings began. But now witching is nothing but tidy charms and nursery rhymes. If the modern woman wants any measure of power, she must find it at the ballot box. When the Eastwood sisters, James Juniper, Agnes Amaranth, and Beatrice Belladonna joined the suffragists of New Salem, they began to pursue the forgotten words and ways that might turn the women's movement into the witches' movement. Stalked by shadows and sickness, hunted by forces who will not suffer a witch to vote, and perhaps not even to live, the sisters will need to delve into the oldest magics, draw new alliances, and heal the bond between them if they want to survive. There's no such thing as witches, but there will be. Okay, doesn't that sound really good? I cannot summarize that for the life of me, but I'm excited to read this, mostly because I know it's a favorite for so many people, and I think it's gonna be a really good time to listen to, because I know it's about sisters and family and just a ton of things that I'm excited to get to. Then I picked up Payback's A Witch, and this one is sapphic, so you already know that I'm excited about it. So we're following Emmy Harlow, who is a witch, but she's been away from her hometown for a long time, and that has kind of dulled her magic a little bit, and that she's no longer as powerful. But there's going to be like a magical tournament in her hometown, and that ends up bringing her back because her family guilt trips her back into the town. And while she's there, she runs into Talia, and Talia is a badass witch who's really good at the dark magical arts. She just broke up with her partner Gareth, who was cheating on her with a girl named Lyndon, unbeknownst to both of them, and this is about revenge. It's described as Chilling Adventures of Sabrina meets the L Word, and I'm just excited to read this because sapphic witches sound exactly like my thing. Then I picked up The Roommate, the story about Clara. She has moved to California to like follow her boyfriend, and then they break up shortly after. So she ends up needing a place to stay, and she gets a roommate who is a sex worker. He works in the adult film industry. I know this is a lot about sexuality and kind of exploring sexuality and making it safe to do so and to be turned on by what you're turned on by. So I'm excited to read this, and that's all I know. That's all I need to know. And I picked up a super cute book, which I'm hoping to watch the Studio Ghibli film as well. This is Kiki's Delivery Service. So Kiki's Delivery Service follows a witch. It is her 13th birthday, and a tradition for witches is that they will move to a new town for 1 year. Kiki decides to fly to this little seaside village called Koriko, and she thinks that her powers will just make the whole town fall in love with her, but that's not the case. It is doesn't bring happiness to the town people, but she's trying to gain the trust of the locals. She has her little cat, Gigi, who apparently is wisecracking and hilarious. And this is all about friendship and finding oneself, and there's magic, and I'm just excited to read this. And finally, we have Notes on an Execution, which I know has been fairly popular this year and a favorite for a lot of people. This follows a man who is about to be executed. He is a serial killer on death row. We are following his perspective, also the perspective of various women in his life who have been impacted by his actions. I believe it's like his mother, his sister, a detective, various people throughout this, and I want to formulate my own opinions about this. I don't think I'll get to this soon. I think this is a book for the new year. But with that, that wraps up all of the books that I hauled in the past couple of weeks. I want to say that I, again, usually get my books on sale like that for when they're like less than $5, or I will get them secondhand at a book or thrift store when they're like $1 or $2. And with all of the 21 books that I purchased, it still cost me $20 less than the 6 books that I bought brand new at Barnes & Noble. That's besides the point. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If anything, I hope that it helped you find some new books that you can put on your radar. These books will all for sure be on my 2023 TBR if I am not able to get to it this year, because we have less than 2 complete months before we are in 2023. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you aren't already, please do make sure to subscribe before you head on out, because that would really support me and my channel. Let me know if you decide to pick up any of these books in the comments below, and I will see you in my next video on Saturday. Bye!